morning, good morning, good morning. What's happening, people? It's so nice to be outside. Hey, if I had a goal, if you had a goal of wanting to make sure that you are being able to speak more often and have a message that becomes more clear, I mean, it's just like public speaking, I guess, right? If you had that goal, I would want to hold you accountable. So I'm holding myself accountable by coming here and making sure that I'm bringing these messages, which always form up here in the morning as I'm at the gym, on my walk, on my run, and then I try and create content around it, and then it becomes let's be honest, I want to say it's like an hour and a half, but honestly, I feel like I spend like maybe like 4 to 6 hours creating content, and it's fun, I enjoy it, but it becomes a little much. So why not just bring it right out and talk about it? And that's why I wanted to come on live right now, and didn't tell anyone else about this, but 3 messages that I know that I wanted to touch on because it's forming in my head, and then the content forms in my head, and the filming the content forms in my head, and then making sure it's perfect forms in my head, and then all of a sudden that message no longer gets out because likely I'm going to miss at least 40% of that message I originally wanted to say. So being able to come on live and do this live stream, talk about it, I think is definitely incredibly necessary. But whenever I'm talking about health, whenever I'm talking about making sure that we're staying consistent with certain things, there's no new messages that are out there. There's nothing new that you're going to hear me say right now other than the way that I say it or the message that I share that brings you to doing something more consistently, doing something a little bit more often. And so I always want to make sure that what we're doing, good morning, K-Save. K-Save, you're up so early this morning. What are you doing up so early? I know that you're not on my time. I'm an early riser, but I definitely always just love being, well, you know what? No, I do. I do love being up, but I feel like there's a utility in it because I can't really get done when I want to if I'm not up earlier. But K-Safe, thanks so much for being here. Okay, look, but there's nothing new that someone's going to say about health, training, nutrition, anything that you haven't likely heard before. Now, if you haven't really been tapped into health and nutrition and training, and I was talking about this with Brian the other day about how there's so much information that we absorb as clinicians, as practitioners, as anyone, and all of a sudden those things become even, the impact of that message we feel becomes lessened, and we got to move on to the next one. But honestly, some of these messages can be said again, but they're nothing new. So, oh, nice. Where are you? Where are you, Eastern, K-Safe? But there's nothing new that I'm going to tell you. There's nothing new about blood work. There's nothing new about training. There's nothing new about nutrition other than me telling you that obviously consistency is going to be important. But this is the message. This is the voice. This is the face that you have to connect to, not mine. It's anybody's. And I wanted to do one thing at the end of this, and I will keep this as best as I can to, I love the fact that Daily Dads is like 30 minutes because we know what to expect. I would prefer these to be less than 20. But, the one thing I wanted to make sure that I'm sharing, because again, there's nothing new in terms of information that I'm going to be able to share with you, but there's going to definitely be a different way to say it, a continued message. And so what I want to do is make sure that you know and stay true to my message that I'm not the only one that you should be listening to, or at least hear my message. And when that gets old and that gets tired, move on to the next one. So at the end, I want to make sure that I'm trying to share, that I will share another resource, another voice, another message that definitely can connect with you. And because I listen to so much, and you know what, on a Tuesday, someone's voice, someone's podcast is going to hit me differently than that same podcast on a Thursday. So we have to keep this library, whether it's in our head, in our mind, whatever's going on, keep it definitely within, just keep that library of resources to go to. Because again, my one message, my one voice should not be the only voice that you're listening to. Okay. So when we're talking about 3 things about making sure that you're staying consistent with what's going on, I was thinking about this earlier, and I today did not want to go to the gym. I did, but the intensity that I was going to be there was not really working. So what I needed to make sure I was going to do was obviously just end up showing up. So I was thinking about why and what would keep me there instead of being overwhelmed by something. And the thing that I was most able to do was change my volume, right? So, three things that I know can impact someone's consistency. It's the frequency and or volume of something that they're actually doing. If someone is doing something way too often, you're probably going to stop doing it. If you're doing something that is going to be way too challenging, difficult for a long period of time, you're likely not going to stay consistent either. If you think you're going to run 7 miles every single day, well, the frequency of every single day is likely an issue. And so you can definitely make sure that you're going to maybe do more miles on less days, but that's still likely going to be a challenge. So I think something that you can definitely do is make sure that you are changing the volume. So if you do change the volume of what you do every day, well, that can be different. So I know for me, whenever I've gone through a training regimen that was really going to be extremely difficult when I'm doing very heavy lifting, I want to show up less because I'm getting injured a lot more, but I'm seeing better progress in terms of my muscle mass, in terms of my body composition, and that's going to be better. Blaze, what did you just say? Um, so I knew that when I went to the gym today that I needed to make sure that I was changing up the volume of what I was doing. Because if I was not getting my volume, if I was doing way too much, I was not going to want to show up. So I just lowered my weights. I kept the reps. It was perfectly fine. It's the lack of showing up that really kind of kills most of the progress. So if you can think about what you're doing now, you're like, you know what? It's just I'm not staying consistent. I stopped going. Well, then change the expectation, change the volume that you're doing it. If you need to make sure that you're going to show up to the gym, even get outside. If you thought that you're going to be walking a mile, just make sure that you're stepping outside. Just change the volume, but keep the frequency. Or keep the frequency. No, keep the volume, but change the frequency, whatever it's going to be. But always think about frequency and volume. Those two things that you can switch before you tell yourself, I haven't been showing up, I haven't been consistent. Think about one of those. One of those is going to be the issue. So if we can change one or realize that one of those was a problem, it's going to be the most help. So many interesting things that happen here. So either frequency or either volume, right? Think about changing that. I'll keep bringing that message. Okay, so I said there's three things that is going to stop your overall consistency. So changing that's going to be good. The other thing I want to make sure that you understand is that there's going to be times of the year where things are going to be different. When it's darker, when it's colder, it's going to be something that you're going to have a really difficult time getting out. Right? It's cold. You got to dress up a little bit more. This is the time to change it. It's not, for anyone here in the Northeast or just in the North, it's getting colder, it's getting darker. And so this is the time to really figure out what's the solution. Start buying a little bit more gear to stay warmer. Make sure that you're thinking about what time you're going to get up. Think about different strategies that are going to help. Maybe a little bit more caffeine. Maybe making sure that you find an accountability partner. Finding a jacket that you know that you're going to be able to move and sweat in. Making sure that you know the gym that you're going to be able to go to that's going to make you feel safe going out in the dark. All those things have to happen now. It's not going to happen. It's not going to be successful if you think about it in the moment, right when's it really getting the darkest? Let's just say like mid-October. Shit, it's so dark, it's so cold, I don't want to do anything else. Well, now this is the time to find out what that solution is. Again, for me, I'm a gearhead. I know that I'm going to get excited if I have new gear, if I have new shoes, if I have a new jacket, if I have something that's going to make me excited to get outside. If you look good, if you think you look good, then you're going to feel good. And when you feel good, you're going to make sure that you're going to stay more consistent. So think about grabbing something now before, or changing or planning something before it gets dark, before it gets cold. Don't do it mid-October, and definitely don't do it as you're approaching a time around December and January. That's not the time to be thinking about how you're going to change up your consistent routine, whatever it is. Think about it now, plan ahead. People who plan are the people that are going to be more successful. So making sure you do it. So I said there's three things that I want to make sure that I tell you that I see or I coach at least with consistency with people. That it's going to be the frequency and the volume. Before you tell yourself you can't do it, before you know that you've stopped doing something, or before you feel as if there's going to be something on the horizon that's going to stop you from being consistent, think about frequency and volume. If you cannot show up as much the same amount of days, change the frequency, or the frequency is going to change on its own, so that you can change the volume. If the volume is something where it's like, oh, man, I'm just so tired, I can't go to the gym, I know, can't even think about putting weight on the bar, can't even think about running or walking that far, then just change the volume. But the most important thing you can do is just keep showing up. So please think about how that can happen. Number two, it's about planning ahead. This is the time of year where like football's starting for people, holidays are starting for people. Everyone's going to start doing a little bit less in a different way because of how busy we are. And we should be with family, we should be with friends. The name of my business is Food is Fuel NYC. People are always like, well, food isn't just fuel. I'm like, well, at the core of it, food really is. That's why we eat, right? But we also connect with people, and there's family traditions around food, all that kind of stuff too. And so I love all those things. But when we think about how the year is changing, like you will have traditions. Great. Keep the traditions, but there's no need to eat at the volumes that you know you've eaten at and you've gained weight in the past. Keep the tradition, just change the volume. That's all you have to do. And so if you have a hard time doing that, that's where you have a larger conversation. But make sure that it's something you do. Or it's the same thing as something just like your overall frequency. People in the holiday, they end up thinking they're going to continue eating for maybe 7 days out of the week, right? Thanksgiving is really one day. Christmas is one day, right? A lot of these holidays are just one day of eating, but we make them extended periods of time. We'll just change the frequency at which you're celebrating with food. Still, show up for the tradition, show up for the family, show up for the fun, but you don't need to eat at that volume every single time that you're actually showing up. Or don't take this out of context. Don't show up that often, because this is what I'll say too. I know that if I show up to some of my friends to every single NFL game, I will be an incoherent drunk. I can't do anything, because they are going to be people that are likely going to drink more, they're going to binge more, and if I put myself in that position more often, it's going to be an issue. I'm still going to show up, just not as often, and I'm still going to eat and drink probably at a higher volume during that time. But if I keep showing up, the frequency is going to be the issue. So the frequency and the volume, always think about one or the other to change before you quit, before you give yourself a hard time about not being consistent. So plan now, plan as things are coming up. Because the third thing that I really want to make sure that you hear is the biggest issue with most individuals that want to get healthy, get active, get rich, read more, be a better dad, all these things. There's one problem that you have right now. The reason why you're not becoming who you want to be, a healthier person, a stronger person, a smarter person, a richer person, a more well-read person, all those things, the reason why you are not able to do that is because you have an identity issue. You have an identity problem because you're not defining yourself as what you want to be. You keep going back to comfort and you're not allowing yourself to be who you are. I'll tell you that if you're going to be someone that wants to be a reader, well, you're probably going to read more. You're going to need to read more. And so if you tell people this, you tell someone, I want to read more, or I am a reader, you identify with a reader, I will promise you people will talk to you about reading more. People will likely think about you when they're buying a gift, and they're likely going to think about a book. If you want to run more, you're probably going to talk more about running. You're going to think more about running. You're going to buy things that are going to be more associated with running. I know that when I get up in the morning, if I identified myself with a dinosaur, I probably would go and dress like a dinosaur more. If I want to get up in the morning and I want to think of myself as a healthy, active individual, I'm probably going to dress as a healthy, active individual. If you are not doing that, if you want to become healthier, if you want to be a better dad, if you want to be a reader, if you want to become rich, if you want to do any of those things, you're going to have to really define yourself as that. But make sure there's things around you that are actually also defining you as that. You can't just keep that in your head. You're just going to be lying to yourself at that point. And most people, they've already identified themselves. This is what I see with binge eaters. You are a binge eater, and so you continually are going to keep binge eating. So in a moment when there's more food around, if you keep telling yourself that you are a binge eater, I'm going to binge, I like to binge, there's comfort in binging, it's okay to binge, you justify these things. But if you did not identify yourself as that, you're going to think it's uncomfortable to be it. Just the same thing around if you're someone who doesn't like raves, you're not going to end up showing up to a rave and feel comfortable. You're likely not going to be dressed like appropriately to be at a rave. I'm like way off base here with my analogy, I feel like, because it's not something I even know about. But you need to identify yourself and change things around you first. What shoes do you have? What clothes do you have to get healthy and active? who's around you, your people. I've been talking to people so often lately. I was, as a quick kind of point of reference, if someone says they want to get healthier, I always say there's going to be like 3 levers that we can pull. Which one are we going to pull right now? And I want you to think about this too. There's going to be 3 levers, either nutrition, training, or your social circles. And if you're not ready to train right now because you don't know how, you feel uncomfortable, if you're not really sure if you're ready to change around your food, but you want to get healthier, just put yourself around people that are doing that. And I don't mean you have to show up to a CrossFit class. You don't have to show up to a gym, but find your friends, hang out with those people more. But you have to identify yourself as someone who wants to be healthier. You have an identity crisis if you are not showing up at least some part of the day as the person that you want to become, right? If you want to be rich, hanging around rich people more is known to support your overall income. People who are smarter speak at a higher level, right? I want to make sure that you know, if you're showing up here and you're listening to this and you've stuck around for it, you're a higher caliber person. You're a person that wants to be able to not just count a calorie in a macro or follow a meal plan or just kind of get healthy for no reason. You're a higher caliber person if you've stuck around for these 17 minutes because you want to be someone that really does want to change themselves. And so now is the time to actually change yourself if that's what you really want to end up doing. But if you want to be healthier, act like a healthy person. Show up like a healthy person. Dress like a healthy person. And if you don't know what that means, because I guess healthy is very subjective, well, start somewhere. If you want to be moving more, change those shoes. If you want to be running more, talk to runners. If you want to be lifting more, start looking up things on the internet around that. But I think that it's going to be something, most people have the identity crisis because they go back to what's comfortable. They go back to themselves. They go back to the binge eater that they are, or the inactive person they are, or the dad who's just a yeller, right? We as humans are extremely resilient, but we're resilient because we're always going to go back to where we feel comfortable. Because we're going to fight for that. We're going to fight for life. We're going to fight for things not to change. That's okay, but it's not okay if what you're currently doing in your activities are not in line with your overall health, your overall mindset you want to achieve, and the outcome that you really define as successful. So that's what I want. Okay, so those 3 things, feel like they're off my head. Not to spend hours with content. We did that in 19 minutes and 7 seconds. But again, 3 things, and I want to share an extra resource. 3 things. 1, if you're not as consistent, you keep falling off, you either have a frequency or a volume issue. Number 2, now is the time to think about how to support yourself and make sure that you're not going to fall off as the year gets darker, colder, busier. You need to think of those things now to make sure that the environment around you doesn't dictate your habits. And number 3, don't let your past identity or who you are right now stop you from who you want to become. If you want to become something different, you have to define yourself as that. You have to be the person that wants to be that. So those are my 3 things there. Last thing, as I said, my voice should not be the only voice telling you something. My voice should definitely, what's going on, Nate? My voice should definitely not be the only person telling you these words or telling you something about health and nutrition. So if you're someone who wants to make sure that you are hearing something different, that's very inspiring. I love this guy. His name is Jared Hamilton. Jared Hamilton, he has a coaching business himself, but great podcast for free. There's nothing here. Jared Hamilton. The podcast is, write this down, put it in your head, search for it right now as I'm talking. Jared Hamilton. He's awesome. Dieting from the inside out. Jared Hamilton, Dieting from the Inside Out. It's another resource, it's another voice, it's another way of saying the same things that we've always known about training and health and nutrition, but he's saying it in a different way that is going to support you, right? Do not let someone's voice be the only voice you listen to in any aspect of life. So I promise you, whenever I will stay as consistent as possible at showing up here in the morning to help myself and help you and get to my goal of speaking more and reaching more people and all of that, I want to make sure that I'm staying true to myself and saying, I don't know everything. My voice is not going to be the one voice that's going to be able to change you. Because again, we as individuals, as humans, we don't really want to change. It's uncomfortable to change. We are resistant to change, but we're resilient because of that. So, Jared Hamilton, Dieting from the Inside Out. I will bring other resources, books, podcasts, TED Talks, whatever it can be. So, if you guys are up in the morning with me, let me know. Plus, I got my steps in. So, anyone that's entering the step battle with VDads, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you because my steps are gonna be that much higher. At least my team is. Because apparently we're gonna choose names as teams. So, here we go. All right, guys. I said 20 minutes. I want to stay somewhat true to that. I think that we all need to get on with the day, know what the expectation is. But you're great. Stay safe. Thanks so much for being here. Nate, I saw you pop in too. We saw a few people be able to pop in some of the other platforms. So thank you so much, guys. Again, I'm Ryan Turner, registered dietitian here based in New York City. You can hear all the noise, specializing in sports nutrition, performance, men's health overall. But let me know if there's any questions you have. Always happy to support you. And I am out. I was just thinking, is there a tagline? I will. I'm gonna say this. There's my tagline. I'm gonna sign off. And as I do that, watch what I do. Watch what I do as I sign off. Watch this. Well, listen to this. It's so loud that you can't even hear it. Got it? There it is. All right, I'm just getting used to these tools, guys. Don't hurt me. All right, guys, so this is what I'm gonna say. You do you. If it's working for your health, your mindset, and your definition of success, no one deserves to tell you different. You do you. All right, guys. I hope you have an excellent morning in Australia. Have a good night. Show up for VDads. 8:30 a.m. Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. We'll be here. All right, guys. Take care. Bye.